This is Montana This Morning.
Good Thursday morning. It's 5:30. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Happy to see you starting your day with us, and happy to see our friend Miller here on the morning show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I got some sleep yesterday.
You did.
So
I know. You poor thing where you were tired yesterday. I was concerned about you, but I'm glad you're doing better.
Yep, 4 hours. Got 6 hours last night, so we're good.
Ooh, 6 hours. Now we're talking party here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, crazy. Well, I'm glad you're doing better there, kiddo.
Thanks.
Hey, hopefully I can give you some weather to put a smile on your face, too. We are talking about the possibility of seeing maybe some 80-degree weather. It's not going to happen for the next few days, but the first part of next week, so something to look forward to. So take a live look across Billings right now, courtesy of the Stockman Bank Weather Cam. 48 right now. At the airport, humidity is around 61%. The dew point's at 35. Winds are calm at the moment. Wind shouldn't be a factor today, but of course around Livingston, the corridor there, we do have some gusts over 20-25 miles an hour possible this afternoon. A lot of cloud cover out there this morning to go along with some rain off to our north. Columbus sitting at 44. We've got Crow Agency at 48. Powell at 45, my friends in Gardner at 41, and White Sulphur Springs sitting at 42. Highs today in the upper 60s to low 70s. We'll go with 68 today here in Billings, just a little bit above average. We start off in the 40s. We'll be in the 60s by lunchtime and then pushing into the upper 60s by the time we get to later in the afternoon. Not a whole lot of rainfall, maybe a few drops today, maybe a few isolated thunderstorms. And then as we get into the first part of next week, we really do warm up. And we'll take a look at that with a forecast coming up.
All right. Sounds good, Miller. Thank you for that update. I'll get on to the news. Our top story this Thursday, it's official. Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney is no longer the GOP House chair. Behind closed doors, House Republicans used a voice vote to remove Cheney from her leadership post. Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy advanced the vote for her removal, but dismissed notions that Cheney's likely successor, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, still believes President Trump won the election. McCarthy said he doesn't think anyone is questioning the legitimacy of the presidential election. Many believe Cheney was ousted for her opposition to the former president. Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale is among the GOP House members who voted to remove Cheney. Rosendale said her public fight with former President Trump was keeping her from doing her job as conference chair.
What she was doing is detracting from the message of the Republican Party. As the conference chair, she is supposed to help us craft and deliver a positive message for the Republican Party so that we can secure the majorities back in 22 and move forward. We can talk about a lot of things, but there's a huge difference between the current Biden administration and what their goals are. Peace and prosperity are gone. What we have now is war and poverty, and we need a conference leader that's going to help us deliver that message.
Rosendale said GOP House members will now vet and choose a new conference chair, but he's not sure who he will support. The vote could come as early as Friday. Cheney will more than likely face a major challenge in the Wyoming Republican primary. Candidates can file to run starting tomorrow. Cheney has indicated she will run for her fourth term and is strong on fundraising, but experts believe whoever former President Trump supports will get a big lift. There are at least 6 other Republicans that have shown interest in running against Cheney. Here in Billings, a Yellowstone County judge has ruled the Heights Water District must allow newly elected and sworn-in board members to take their seats. There was a meeting scheduled last night, but the old board locked the new one out of the building. So the 5 new members stood outside the Water District building and held the meeting right there. Previous Water District officials have been under scrutiny for what critics called extremely high fees on ratepayers, as well as a lack of transparency. One new board member says the previous regime refused to recognize the results of the election.
I don't know who they were planning to appoint, but it was clear they were going to appoint 3 people, which left them in power. And the issue is, why are you so desperate to stay in power? We're all residents of the Heights. We're all ratepayers. What is it that makes it so important that you stay in power? So something's wrong, and I don't know what it is.
Ellis says last night's meeting was critical to show recognition for the elected board and to make it clear they plan to follow open meeting laws. She says the board will make sure it has access to financial and public records, and none of them will be destroyed. The judge will hear arguments about the order that allowed the seating of the 5 board members on May 27th. Continuing our coverage, Montana Supreme Court justices will not recuse themselves from a case by Montana Republicans hoping to get internal documents from the court. The request to step down came from Attorney General Austin Knudsen, who says the court shouldn't decide on subpoenas meant for themselves. Justice Lori McKinnon said the legislature manufactured a conflict by issuing subpoenas to the justices last month. She said it's the court's job to decide such issues and that stepping down would undermine the court's reputation with the public. A bill that could eventually lead to lower health insurance costs was signed into law by Governor Greg Gianforte yesterday. The law imposes new regulations on pharmacy benefit managers. These are companies that determine drug benefits and prices in a health insurance plan. Pharmacy benefit managers will now be required to register in Montana and report on rebates and bonuses they receive from drug manufacturers. Insurance Commissioner Troy Downing believes health insurers can use that information to drive down costs.
Gives them information that they didn't have before. This opens, the door or shines the light onto where all that money is. And our belief and hope is that having that information gives them a foothold in being able to negotiate better contracts with these PBMs.
The bill passed the legislature last month on nearly unanimous votes. In national news, the Colonial Pipeline shutdown has ended, but the gas shortage in the South isn't quite over. The company restarted operations yesterday, but said it will be several days before fuel deliveries return to normal. The shutdown caused panic buying of gas by drivers who wanted to make sure they didn't run out. The Colonial Pipeline transports about 45% of fuel used on the East Coast. It shut down after a cyber attack last Friday. President Joe Biden signed an executive order to help the government better respond to cyber attacks like the one that hit the pipeline. The order requires all software purchased by the federal government to meet certain safety standards. It also ensures a system developed for the government and the public to quickly determine if software is secure. The White House says the administration has been working on this executive order since the second week in office. Clashes between Israelis and Palestinians continue while the international community urges the two sides to de-escalate. Gaza's health ministry says at least 69 Palestinians have been killed, including 16 children. 7 people have been killed in Israel, including at least 1 child. CBS's Laura Podesta reports on the deadly conflict, which has resulted in protests here in the U.S.
Israeli airstrikes hit right next to the Gaza City Bureau of the Associated Press as tensions continue to soar in the Middle East. Watch as this building, the tallest in Gaza, comes crumbling down after a separate airstrike. The Israeli military says it's in response to Gaza militants firing more than 1,600 rockets at Israel since Monday. A UN spokesperson delivered a warning from the Secretary General.
Israeli security forces must exercise maximum restraint and calibrate their use of force.
The violence also spilled into the streets of Israel, with groups of Jews and Arabs clashing. Israeli media says this is video of an angry mob attacking an Arab driver in the town of Bat Yam. Eyewitnesses insist it was after the driver tried to run them over. Here in the U.S., protesters are taking to the streets. Palestinian supporters marched in Chicago yesterday, while people holding up the Israeli flag gathered in New York City's Times Square. President Biden spoke by phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and later said Israel has justification to protect its citizens.
Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory.
The president also called on Palestinians to de-escalate. This round of violence began weeks ago when Israel restricted gatherings during Ramadan and moved to evict some Palestinians from their homes in East Jerusalem. The U.S. is now sending an envoy to try to work out a ceasefire. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
United Nations officials are also involved in talks to negotiate a ceasefire. A new documentary filmed in Hardin is shining a light on the MMIW movement. Say Her Name focuses on the cases of Sarah Stops Pretty Places, Selena Not Afraid, and Henny Scott. Their stories hit home for the film's creator, who is Native American herself. She says she hopes her documentary can inspire federal legislation so more can be done to get to the root of the problem and find more missing women before it's too late.
There was no help to them. These families, they have to do investigations on their own. They have to go out and find answers. They have to figure out and put pieces to the puzzle together and figure out what happened to their daughters. Why are they missing, or why have they been murdered? It makes these families feel, and it makes Native Americans and Indigenous people as a whole feel like we don't matter. Why is it that our lives, can just we could just be killed so senselessly and nothing happens? There's no consequences.
Say Her Name is available to watch for free on YouTube. You can find a link to the film in this story at ktvq.com.